The steak was supposed to be rare, not begging for her life. Chris Blackwood didn't flinch, but his jaw tightened. Across the table stood a young alien woman, barefoot, shaking and wrapped in chains. Her skin was soft blue, her long black hair falling like ink down her back. Her eyes locked onto his, wide with terror. She wasn't on the menu. She was the menu. A gray-skinned waiter with 4 arms smiled politely. "Your fresh serving, sir. Would you like us to prepare her at the table, or do you prefer to do it yourself?" The expensive restaurant around them was quiet. Alien couples sipping bright drinks. Waiters gliding silently between tables. No one looked twice at the chained girl. Chris leaned back slowly, the soft leather chair groaning beneath his weight. He hadn't drawn a weapon. "Not yet. I'll handle the preparation myself," he said calmly, the words like ice. Hours earlier. New Singapore glowed under the stars like a circuit board. Metal towers, neon lights, and air traffic stacked in 3 layers of chaos. Inside a dark speeder parked above the city, Chris Blackwood read the final message on his screen. Contract completed. Payment received. 900,000 credits. He shut the screen. Job done. Chris was a former Earth Force security officer. Now, a private contractor for hire. Bodyguard, smuggler escort, asset recovery. Dangerous work. But he liked it that way. His shoulder still ached from last week's gunfight on Helios 3. Time to celebrate. And he knew the place. The Stellar Palette. A luxury restaurant in the heart of the city, famous for fresh and rare delicacies from across the galaxy. He didn't know the war would begin there. Back to now. Saisha, he didn't know her name yet, stood quietly beside the table. Chains rattled softly at her ankles. Her eyes pleaded. Chris's training kicked in. Scan the room. Count the exits. Read the threats. 2 guards near the door. 1 near the kitchen. Security cams in the corners. He could kill them all in under a minute. But not yet. The waiter placed a silver tray of knives on the table. "If you'd like to begin, sir." Chris forced a smile. "No need for tools. I have my own preferences." The waiter bowed. "Of course. She is yours now." They left. Chris turned to the girl. "What's your name?" "Saisha." "Good, now listen. I'm not going to eat you. I'm getting you out of here." Her eyes widened. She nodded fast. "Play along," he whispered. "And don't look too alive." Outside the restaurant, neon lights painted the night in color. The guards didn't follow. No one questioned a wealthy man taking his expensive meal to go. As soon as they reached his speeder, Chris opened the side panel and pulled out a multi-tool. Within seconds, the chains fell to the ground. Saisha gasped, rubbing her wrists. "Thank you." I thought I was going to die in there." Chris opened the door for her. "You're not dinner tonight. Now get in." As they lifted off, Saisha looked down at the restaurant's golden roof. "You don't understand," she said, her voice shaking. "That place, it's not a restaurant. It's a front. For something much worse." Chris glanced at her. "Go on. It's owned by the Crimson Syndicate. They kidnap rare species like me. Dancers, refugees, slaves. Then they cook us." Chris's hands tightened on the controls. "And no one stops them?" "They pay the police. Even the planetary commissioner eats there." Chris looked ahead. His jaw set like stone. "I'm going to burn that place down." Red lights blinked on his dashboard. Incoming pursuit vehicles. 3 black speeders appeared in the rear view. "No headlights! Fast! They're here!" Saisha said. "They won't let me leave alive." Chris's lips curled into a grin. "They'll have to catch us first." He slammed the throttle. The speeder screamed through the sky, weaving between towers. Chris spun into a low tunnel, dodging air taxis and glowing signs. Blaster fire lit the sky behind them. "They're shooting at us." Saisha yelled. "Yeah," Chris said, voice calm. "That's how you know they're scared." 1 enemy ship pulled close. Chris flipped a switch. A rear cannon popped out and launched a pulse mine. Boom! The Syndicate speeder vanished in blue fire. "You're insane!" Saisha laughed. Chris glanced at her. "You're welcome." When they finally landed in a shadowed alley, safe for now, Chris opened a hidden door in the wall. "Where are we?" she asked. "My safe house. We've got food, weapons, medical supplies, and a whole lot of revenge to plan." He turned to her. "You ready to start a war?" Saisha stared at him for a long second, then nodded. "I've been ready since they put me on that plate." The explosion came first. bright, silent, and wrong. Chris Blackwood didn't look away. He watched the burning sky from the roof of his safe house, while the city alarm screamed below. The stellar palette was gone, a ball of silver fire swallowing one of New Singapore's richest towers. Beside him, Saisha shivered beneath his spare jacket. "You did that?" Chris kept his eyes on the flames. "No, they did." He turned to her. "The syndicate is cleaning its own tracks." Inside, the holoscreens lit up with breaking news. "Terrorist attack. Human suspect involved." His face appeared on every channel. The system had chosen its villain. Hours earlier, they had reached the hideout, a hidden apartment buried under a scrapyard dome. Metal walls, old weapons, dusty air. Not fancy, but secure. Chris tossed her a towel. "Bathroom's through there. There's food in the box. Not human." Saisha managed a small smile. "I didn't think you'd offer me dinner again." He almost smiled back. Almost. "You need to eat. You've been drugged." While she cleaned up, Chris connected his wrist chip to the wall terminal. Lines of encrypted data scrolled across the screen. He had hacked the restaurant's internal server before they escaped, just in case. Most of the files were corrupted, but one folder survived. Its name made his stomach tighten: Project Harvest. When Saisha came out, her blue skin clean and glowing under the dim light. "Chris was already reading. They called it flavor enhancement, didn't they?" he asked. She froze. "You saw the files?" He nodded. "They injected you with something. Do you know what it was?" She sat beside him, hugging her knees. "They said it made the meat more appealing. But I heard the scientists whisper. They were measuring reactions, not flavor. Reactions? Pain, fear, adrenaline. They said the taste changes when the body thinks it's dying." Chris stared at the screen. "That's not cuisine. That's research." He scrolled further. Images, charts, and reports. Each file had a name and a tag: species type, nutrient value, genetic yield, and under that, subject condition: alive. Saisha pressed a hand to her mouth. They weren't just feeding rich monsters. They were collecting data. On what? Chris asked. She hesitated. On compatibility. He looked at her sharply. Compatibility? She nodded. Between species. How human biochemistry reacts to alien DNA when combined. Chris frowned. "You're saying they were studying hybrids?" Saisha whispered. "I think they were trying to create them." The terminal beeped. A new line of text flashed on the screen. Authorized by Commissioner Cal Thax, Planetary Security. Chris cursed. "The same bastard who's calling me a terrorist on every channel." The screen changed again. Live footage of the burning restaurant. Cal Thax's reptilian face filled the broadcast. "A human male attacked our citizens tonight, killing dozens. Humanity's violence knows no limits." Saisha clenched her fists. "He's lying." "Of course he is," Chris said. "He's not protecting peace. He's protecting profit." The ground suddenly trembled. Chris jumped to his feet, grabbing his weapon. Outside, the scrapyard lights flickered as heavy boots echoed against the metal floor. "They found us," he said. Saisha's eyes widened. "Already? Tracked the speeder, maybe. Or the broadcast gave them my location." He tossed her a small pistol. "Ever use one of these?" She checked the power cell like a professional. "I was a dancer." "But not a helpless one," Chris grinned. "Good to know." The first blast tore through the door. Syndicate troopers stormed in, armor black, eyes glowing red. Chris moved like a shadow. One clean shot, two down. Another leap, elbow to throat. Saisha fired from cover, the pistol humming with blue energy. Her aim was sharp. Within seconds, the room filled with smoke and sparks. When the last soldier fell, Chris dragged Saisha toward the back tunnel. "They'll send more," he said. She followed, coughing through the dust. "Where are we going?" "To someone who can help us crack these files properly." A friend in the undernet. They climbed into a narrow speeder hidden under metal sheets. Chris punched in the launch code. As the vehicle lifted off, explosions rippled behind them. The hideout collapsed into flames. Saisha looked back at the smoke. "That was your home," Chris shook his head. "That was a trap. Home's where you make your last stand." She looked at him curiously. "You talk like a man who's already fought too many wars," he smirked. "You have no idea." Below them, the city glowed in endless layers of light. Above, the sky shimmered with ships and satellites. Chris opened a holo map. The undernet contact is near the financial district. Deep under BioIncorporation towers. Saisha's eyes widened. BioIncorp? That's the company that funded the stellar pallet. Then we just found our next target. She gave him a look somewhere between fear and admiration. You plan to walk into a corporate fortress? Walk? He smiled faintly. No. We crashed their party. The speeder disappeared into the night as city patrols searched the burning ruins behind them. Inside BioIn's highest tower, an alien scientist watched the news and whispered into a communicator. Project Harvest is compromised. Begin Phase 2, the screen flickered. A new file opened automatically, a holographic image of Saisha. Under her picture were the words, Status, Escaped Test Subject. Secondary marker, Genetic match, Human. Saisha had never worn silk before. She also never imagined wearing it to sneak into a building full of murderers. The mirror inside the speeder showed her reflection, blue skin glowing softly, black hair pinned up. A shimmering silver gown hugged her shape. Elegant, dangerous, perfect for blending in. Chris glanced over from the pilot seat. You clean up well. Saisha smiled, hiding the fear in her eyes. So do you. Chris was wearing a sharp black suit. No armor, no weapons in sight. Just the calm confidence of a man who's walked into enemy fire before and walked out alive. Tonight, they weren't fighters. They were guests at a BioIncorporation gala. Hours earlier, Chris stood in the middle of an abandoned data vault beneath the city. Old security feeds buzzed on dusty screens. A broken robot arm twitched in the corner, but one terminal still worked. He connected the stolen files. Saisha stood beside him, her arms crossed, her expression tight. Are we sure about this? She asked. Crashing a high society gala? Infiltrating BioIn's top tower? Chris didn't look away from the screen. The syndicate hid Project Harvest behind this company. They didn't just test you. They tested others. Probably hundreds. He pulled up a list. Alien names, human names, pictures, tags, viable, not compatible, flavor weak, gene strong. Saisha's breath caught. She pointed. That's a girl I knew. From Nova's Prime, a dancer. She disappeared 6 months ago. They didn't just serve people, Chris said darkly. They studied them, tracked them, collected samples. And now, Saisha whispered, they're calling us terrorists. Chris nodded. Time to crash their party. Present moment. The BioIn tower was made of glass and light, 100 floors tall. Floating security drones buzzed around it like flies with lasers. The lobby glowed golden, with banners that read, BioIncorporation Gala, celebrating genetic advancement. Inside, aliens and humans in luxury fashion laughed, danced, and drank strange glowing cocktails. Live music played. Waiters floated by with silver trays. Chris and Saisha walked in arm. Their forged IDs passed the scan. The security guard nodded. Welcome, Mr. Reynolds. Enjoy the evening. Chris gave a polite smile. His eyes, though, scanned everything. Security tight, he whispered. 3 guards near the elevators. 2 more upstairs. Cameras in every corner, Saisha nodded. Target? Chris pointed discreetly. That Drachnid executive near the bar. Sloppy drunk. His keycard can get us into the executive lift, down to the lab level. And after that? She asked. He smiled. We improvise. They moved through the crowd, slow and casual. Blending in, Chris grabbed 2 glasses from a passing tray. Act natural, he said, handing her one. Act like we're on a date? She teased. He gave her a look. Can it be both? Saisha raised an eyebrow, amused. Careful, Commander. I bite. Good, he said with a smirk. I prefer sharp company. They reached the drunk executive. Chris brushed past him just enough to snag the ID chip from his coat. Smooth, quiet, professional. The exec didn't even notice. Got it, Chris whispered. Elevators that way, Saisha said. We're almost there. Then everything changed. A voice crackled over a guard's comm. Visual confirmed. Targets from the restaurant incident are inside. Move in quietly, Chris heard it. So did Saisha. Plan B? She asked. Chris took her hand. Plan B. They sprinted. Guards moved. Lasers flashed. Music screamed to a stop. Chris shoved open the executive lift doors and pulled her inside. Bullets sparked off the metal as the doors closed. The elevator dropped fast. Chris hacked the security panel with a tool from his sleeve. "Do I want to know where you got that?" Saisha asked. "Let's just say I've worked a few shady contracts." She leaned close. "And you're full of surprises." "You haven't seen anything yet." The doors opened to a cold, sterile corridor. Steel floors. Bright white lights. And silence. They had arrived. Project Harvest. Research level. Rows of doors. Each marked with numbers. Each hiding something terrible. Saisha read one label. Subject, 44B. Status, frozen, breed viable. Her hands trembled. "This is where they kept me." Chris moved to the main terminal. "Start the download." "I'll check the chambers." He opened one. Inside was a boy, maybe 12. Blue skin like Saisha's. Cryo-frozen. Alive. Chris's face hardened. "No more," he whispered. "No more of this," Saisha called out. "Files are downloading?" "But there's a hidden folder." She opened it. "And froze. What is it?" Chris asked. "They weren't just testing for food," she said slowly. "They were testing for breeding compatibility." Chris's eyes narrowed. "What?" Saisha looked at him, shocked. "With humans. That's why they targeted me. That's why I survived. I'm compatible." Chris stepped back. Then the alarms went off. Saisha was glowing. Not metaphorically, literally glowing. Her skin pulsed with soft light as she sat on the floor of Chris's second hideout, breathing hard, hands shaking. Chris stared at her, frozen. "Your skin," he said. "It's flickering." Saisha looked down at her arms. Blue skin, veins lit up like neon trails. "This started after we escaped the lab," she whispered. "It's getting worse." "Worse?" Chris stepped closer, worry in his voice. "Are you in pain?" Saisha looked up. Her lips trembled, her eyes wide. "I'm not in pain," she said slowly. "I'm pregnant 10 hours earlier." The bio-in tower burned behind them as Chris and Saisha raced away on a stolen speeder. The files from the lab were secured. The captives they freed had been sent to resistance contacts. Underground. But Saisha had been quiet the whole ride, pale, unsteady, holding her stomach like something inside didn't feel right. Chris didn't ask at first. He thought maybe it was shock, trauma, adrenaline. But by the time they reached the backup safe house, she could barely stand. Now. Chris helped her onto the medical bed. The room was small, filled with old Earth Force tech, medical scanners, and stolen syndicate tools. "I have a scanner," he said. "We'll figure this out." Saisha didn't argue. She lay back, arms crossed over her chest, eyes staring at the ceiling. Chris ran the handheld scanner over her body. It beeped, blinked, then stopped. The screen froze. He stared at the reading, then read it again, and again. "No," he muttered. "No way. This can't be right. What does it say?" Saisha asked quietly. Chris turned the screen toward her. "Life form. Detected. Hybrid status. Active development. Accelerated. Parental match. 1 human, 1 modified Laren." Her hands flew to her stomach. "Is it real?" Chris nodded slowly. "It's real. You're pregnant. But how?" "That night was barely 2 days ago." He frowned. "The files said they were using some kind of genetic enhancer. To test breeding compatibility." Her voice shook. "So they didn't just want me as food. I was a test subject." For this, Chris's jaw tightened. They turned dinner into an experiment. The alert system pinged again. "Alert. Broadcast incoming." Chris tapped the screen. A live newsfeed played. Commissioner Cal Thax was giving a press conference. Behind him stood elite soldiers, his reptilian face calm, his forked tongue flicking between words. "This is proof of humanity's danger," he said. "A rogue human assaulted a respected facility, endangered civilians, and abducted genetically sensitive property." The screen showed Chris and Saisha walking through the bio-in gala, then edited footage of them firing at guards. "This is not an isolated act of violence," Thax continued. "It is an attempt to corrupt species purity." "We have evidence of illegal interbreeding," Saisha gasped. "They know," Chris's fists clenched. They turned the truth into a weapon. The broadcast continued. "Emergency Council vote will decide on strict genetic separation. No more human-alien unions. No more contamination. The room fell silent. Then Saisha spoke. They're going to use me. And the baby. To justify a species war, Chris sat down next to her. His voice was calm but firm. Then we won't let them. How? She whispered. We show the galaxy what they're hiding. That this wasn't corruption. It was a full-scale experiment. Funded, protected, targeted. And you, he placed a hand on her stomach, are the proof. Saisha looked away. What if I'm not ready for this? He leaned in closer. Neither am I, but it's happening. And I'm with you. All the way. A sharp ping cut through the moment. Incoming vehicles detected. Chris rushed to the window. Black Syndicate speeders. 4 of them. Landing fast. Lights off. Silent approach. They found us, he said. Saisha stood up. Her legs shook, but she stayed tall. Can you fight? He asked. She held up her blaster. I'm pregnant, not helpless. Chris gave a tight smile. That's my girl. As they prepared to escape, Chris grabbed the encrypted drive. We take this to the Earth Embassy, he said. Once they see the proof, they can't ignore it. And if we don't make it? Saisha asked. Chris turned to her. Then we make sure they remember exactly what happens when you mess with humans. The baby kicked for the first time during a gunfight. Saisha felt it just as she fired her blaster. One clean shot through a Syndicate enforcer's helmet. The shock of it nearly froze her. Chris, she whispered. He moved. Chris didn't turn, but his voice stayed calm. Then tell him to hold on. We're not done yet, blaster fire screamed past them. The air was thick with smoke, dust, and sparks. The safe house, their last one, was gone. Blown open by Syndicate charges. Now, they were trapped inside a collapsed warehouse, holding off wave after wave of enemy troops. Outside, the sky of New Singapore burned red. Inside, Saisha and Chris stood shoulder to shoulder, lovers, fugitives, and now, parents-to-be, 12 minutes earlier. The alarm screamed across the hideout. Multiple vehicles inbound. No time to run. Chris threw Saisha her coat and strapped his blaster to his side. Stay low. I'll stall them. Saisha raised an eyebrow. You think I'm sitting this out? I'm carrying your half-human miracle, not a glass sculpture. Chris looked at her, glowing, fierce, stronger than ever. A moment passed. He handed her another blaster. Try not to get shot. No promises, she said, and kissed him hard. Now. Syndicate enforcers swarmed through the broken entry. Chris moved like lightning. Close-range shots, fast cover shifts, brutal counters. His training showed in every motion. Saisha covered the flank, her movements fluid despite the pressure. Her instincts were sharp. Her aim, deadlier than ever. You sure you were a dancer? Chris called out. Exotic worlds, wild fans. Same difference, she replied, taking down 2 attackers with 1 smooth shot. But they were losing ground. Chris ducked behind a pillar as a grenade exploded nearby. We can't hold this, he muttered. Too many, Saisha reloaded. Then we run, he nodded. Back exit. Service tunnels, go now. They ran. As they sprinted through a collapsing hallway, Saisha stumbled. Chris caught her instantly. What is it? He asked, panic flashing in his eyes. I'm fine, she said through clenched teeth. He's growing fast. Chris helped her stay upright. We're going to get out. I swear it. Above them a loud boom. Part of the roof collapsed behind them. They burst through the emergency tunnel door, only to freeze. 3 Syndicate speeders blocked the alley. More enforcers raised their weapons. Chris didn't think. He raised his hand, not to shoot but to drop a sphere. Pulse grenade. Boom! Lights died. Guns fizzled. Enemies fell twitching from the blast. Chris and Saisha ran. 10 blocks later, they reached a maintenance shaft. Chris smashed the control panel. The door hissed open. Inside, a dusty, hidden chamber filled with Earth Force crates. Saisha collapsed onto a bench, breathing hard. Chris paced the room. They won't stop. They'll follow us till they have you. Or the child. Saisha looked up. Not just me, us. They're afraid of us, together. Chris finally sat beside her. You're right. They don't fear the baby. They fear what he means. She leaned on his shoulder. Proof that humans and aliens aren't so different. Chris turned to her. I love you, she smiled, eyes shining despite the exhaustion. Took you long enough. They shared a deep, exhausted kiss. the kind shared between people who might not live to share another. Then Chris stood up. "We go to the Earth Embassy. We dump the truth in front of every camera. Let the galaxy see," Saisha nodded. "Let's end this." Suddenly, alarms. Chris checked the sensor screen. New signal. High-level military class. It's Commissioner Cal Thax himself. Saisha stood. "He's coming for us personally?" Chris's eyes narrowed. Then he's desperate. He reached for his gear. "Time to show him what humans do when you come for their family." Saisha cocked her blaster. "Time to shoot first," Chris smiled. "And love later." The newborn didn't cry. He pulsed. A soft hum filled the Earth medical chamber. Lights flickered. Machines paused. Every screen in the room flashed the same word: interference. Saisha lay still, breathing fast, her skin glowing like starlight. In her arms, their son blinked his strange blue eyes. No tears, no sound, just quiet power radiating from his tiny body. Chris stood beside them, eyes wide, weapon still in hand. Doctors didn't speak. They just stared. The child, born of two species, shaped by forbidden experiments, had just disrupted every machine in the room by simply existing. 3 hours earlier. They barely made it to the Earth Embassy. Syndicate patrols followed. Air traffic shut down. Every major news channel now labeled Chris and Saisha as criminals, traitors, and bioterrorists. But one resistance contact still answered. Commander Harmston, Earth Force veteran, opened the back gates of the embassy compound and pulled them in. "You brought the galaxy's most wanted pregnant woman here?" he asked, leading them inside. "No," Chris said. "I brought proof the galaxy needs to see." Inside the secure chamber, the med team rushed to Saisha. Her body was in labor, but something was wrong. The readings were moving too fast, too unpredictable. "She's not going to last hours," one doctor said. "Maybe minutes." Chris held her hand tight. "I'm here," he said. "I'm not going anywhere." Saisha gave him a tired smile. "I know. I feel him, Chris. He's different. Different how?" "Not wrong," she whispered. "Just more. Now." The baby was here, alive, calm, strange. Chris stared at the child. His skin was a soft, glowing blue, lighter than Saisha's, but his eyes were pure human, with something else inside. A glow. A light. Commander Harmston stepped in, whispering, "Our scans picked up something unusual. You might want to see this." He led Chris to the next room, where a monitor displayed a live heat map of the baby's vitals. Except it wasn't just showing a heartbeat. It was showing bioelectric fields forming around the child's body. A natural shield, shifting, reacting, adapting. "His DNA is rewriting itself every second," Harmston whispered. "This kid isn't just a hybrid. He's something entirely new." Chris returned to the room. Saisha sat up, her son resting peacefully in her arms. "I think we should name him Nexus," she said softly. Chris raised an eyebrow. "Bridge between stars?" She nodded. "He's proof we were never meant to be apart." Chris leaned down, kissed her forehead. "Perfect." Then the security alarm sounded. Incoming broadcast. All channels. Commissioner Cal Thax appeared, live across the galaxy. Behind him, the Galactic Council stood silent, watching, letting him speak. "These two fugitives have committed crimes against science, peace and biology itself," Thax hissed. "They have created an illegal life form, a threat to species purity. A monster." Chris stared at the screen. "He's scared." Saisha clutched Nexus closer. "He should be." Outside the embassy, ships began to descend. Syndicate elite, BioIncorp soldiers, even council guards. They were here for one thing, the baby. Inside, the resistance scrambled. "They're breaking all rules of neutrality," Harmston growled. "But we have no fleet backup. If they come in force, we can't hold." Chris looked at Nexus, then at Saisha, then at the baby monitor, and an idea formed. Minutes later, as enemy forces surrounded the embassy, Chris and Saisha walked out the front gates, calmly, openly. News drones swarmed above. Weapons pointed at them. Cal Thax himself landed in a gold cruiser. "You've made this easy," Thax sneered. "Give me the child." Chris stepped forward, holding Nexus in his arms. "You wanted a weapon," he said. You made one. Then Nexus opened his glowing eyes, and everything stopped, every weapon shorted out. Drones fell from the sky. Soldiers froze, locked in place as a wave of invisible force swept out from the child's body. Not destruction, control. Thax staggered back. "What is this?" Seisha stepped forward. "This is your experiment. Your project. Your future." Chris's voice was cold. "You wanted a monster. You created a miracle. Galactic history didn't change with a war. It changed with a baby." Yawning. Nexus blinked his glowing eyes and let out a small, soft sound. It wasn't a cry, more like a gentle hum. Around him, the lights flickered. The weapons in nearby soldiers' hands powered down again, and the communication towers above New Singapore reset for the third time that day. The baby wasn't angry. He was just awake. Commissioner Cowell Thax stood frozen, drenched in sweat, watching his elite soldiers fail to raise their rifles, and in front of him stood Chris Blackwood, human security contractor turned protector, holding his son like a torch that could not be dimmed. 1 hour earlier, inside the Earth Embassy war room, chaos had taken hold. Council ships hovered above. Syndicate troops prepared to breach. Political leaders argued over comms, and Nexus, only a few hours old, was sleeping, wrapped in a soft blue blanket in Saisha's arms. "He's not just reacting to danger," Saisha whispered. "He's connected to it. He senses fear, hate, and stops it." Chris looked at her. "Then maybe it's time we stop hiding behind walls." "Let the whole galaxy see," Commander Harmston nodded. "It's risky, but if you're going to end this, do it loud. Do it live. Back to now." Saisha stood beside Chris on the embassy steps. Her gown shimmered in the sunlight, her posture proud, her eyes fearless. All cameras were on them. Every screen in the city, every council broadcast, every datapad from here to the spiral rim. Chris held Nexus up, not as a threat, but as truth. "This is what they tried to kill," he said calmly. "Not a weapon. Not a mistake, a child, born of love." Saisha stepped forward. "You called us a crime, called him an abomination. But here he is, more peaceful, more powerful, and more human than all of you." A pause. A silence. Then Nexus blinked, and every lie broke. Council feed, live translation. Activated genetic segregation proposals. Withdrawn. Emergency vote overturned. "Commissioner, Thax under investigation for war, crimes and illegal experimentation." The news exploded across star systems. Footage of the baby shutting down weapons with a blink. The look on Thax's face. Saisha's speech. Chris holding his son with fire in his eyes. People cried. Protesters cheered. Resistance groups danced in the streets. And Nexus, unaware of it all, finally fell asleep in his father's arms. 2 weeks later. The galaxy was still buzzing, but inside a small, quiet garden on Earth, peace had returned. Chris sat on a bench, rocking Nexus gently. Saisha sat beside him, barefoot in the grass, smiling. "You know," she said, "a month ago I was chained up in a restaurant." Chris chuckled. "And I just wanted a rare steak. Instead," she added, "we started a revolution." Chris leaned in and got the perfect order. They kissed, slow, deep, thankful. Commander Harmston walked in with a datapad. "The Council's offering you both official status," he said. "Ambassadors for interspecies rights. You'll travel, speak, lead." Chris raised an eyebrow. "Me, in politics?" "You're already a symbol," Harmston shrugged. "Might as well get paid for it," Saisha smirked. "And what about Nexus?" "Already a legend," the commander said. "They call him the Child of Balance now." Chris looked down at his son. "He'll have a lot on his shoulders." "Good thing," Saisha said. "He's got us." Later that night, Chris cooked dinner, real food this time. Saisha set the table. Nexus rested in a cradle beside them, glowing softly in his sleep. They sat down to eat. For once quiet, Chris raised his glass. "To mistakes," Saisha laughed. "You mean dinner orders?" "No," he said. "To the best wrong order in history." Meanwhile, across the galaxy, in dark corners of space, hidden labs buzzed to life. Screens showed Nexus, not as a baby, but as data, power, potential, Unknown figures spoke in low voices. If this child exists, there will be others. We must control it, or destroy it. Begin phase 2.